How's it going, guys? It's the final render here. We just got done live streaming the Fallout 76 beta for the very first time, and I'm going to give my first impressions on it while it's fresh in my mind. It's currently 5:30 in the morning right now. The beta times were a bit different for the UK, for example, so it's very, very early for me right now, but let's get the impressions out while it is still fresh in my brain. So, firstly, let's just say, I am very, very impressed with Fallout 76. It was not what I was expecting at all. I was expecting a game that was very different to the Fallout experience, but was kind of dressed up as Fallout. But actually, what we got was something that was exceptionally Fallout-y. I was very impressed by how much it felt like Fallout, in particular, how much it felt like Fallout 4. So, let me just kind of break it down to you as simply as possible. It is literally Fallout 4 experience, but it is very much refined in a lot of ways, and it also obviously has the online elements in there. And everything has been designed with the idea of bringing online into Fallout. It's not about getting the Fallout license and somehow trying to make it online. It is about getting what works in Fallout and then bringing in online elements and then changing the online elements to work around Fallout. Not about trying to work Fallout around an online element, which I think was very, very cool. The result is that it feels, as I said, very Fallout 4. And I'm sure you guys are saying, but final render, you handsome man stud. You're obviously going to be a bit biased. You love Fallout. What about some of us people who are a little bit on the fence? Honestly, guys, if you're a little bit on the fence, I don't think you should be. I think if you enjoy the gameplay of Fallout 4, whether if you like the story or whether if you like the world or whatever, I don't mean that, then you'll probably really enjoy Fallout 76. So, let's start with some of the positives, and then we'll talk about some of the negatives, and then we'll kind of round it up at the end. So to start off with, the actual world itself, I think, is the main character in Fallout 76. And the world itself is beautiful. It is a very, very nice place, Appalachia, as it is referred to, West Virginia. The things which make it really, really good are the fact that it has got a huge lighting improvement from Fallout 4 and also a much more robust weather system. It makes the world feel much more alive. The fact that you can go up somewhere quite high, look out into the distance, and you can see very far away it's raining, but over where you are, it's sunshine. That is very, very impressive. It really made the world feel alive. There is an awful lot of stuff in the world. A lot of people were saying, surely that if it's 4 times the size of Fallout 4, surely that means most of the land is going to be empty, right? Well, you would definitely be wrong. There is so much stuff in the world. I was very, very impressed. The actual towns themselves don't take too far to get between, and there is lots of stuff in between those towns. Lots of wrecked cars, lots of abandoned cabins, as you would expect in Fallout, and lots of remnants of old civilizations. And it definitely felt exceptionally Fallout to constantly be basically tripping over the remnants of the old world. And not only that, but as you explored, you were dynamically given quests in a very believable fashion. It was so cool to just stumble upon places and have a quest there waiting for you to go. And there were lots of opportunities to do this. For example, me and the squad just stumbled into the old remnants of a military base. I was thinking, great, maybe we can find some cool weapons, maybe we can find some cool loot. But what we got instead was a military base that was maintained by robots, which was actually a training camp. And they immediately began to follow their protocols and enlist me as a US Army soldier and made me go through basic training, doing agility tests where I had to jump over objects, maybe do target practice where I had to shoot certain targets in a very short period of time, and I also had to analyze several scenes and work out if any of the suspects they had locked behind rooms were communists. Surprise, surprise, final render got all the answers right and passed the tests every single time because I am a good boy, but it was awesome that we just stumbled upon a place wanting to loot it, but instead got a little bit of history and a little bit about the world, along with lots of experience points and some loot as well at the end of the day. So that was very, very cool that when you just walk around, you naturally get quests, and not only that, but you also get quests pop up that are not so common, such as you will get a little marker saying there's also a government drop nearby. You can go and get that if you wanted. It will mark it on your map and you can go get that. It's not really a story quest, but it does give you these little quests just naturally as you walk around, which is very, very cool indeed that it's constantly giving you stuff to do if you want to do it, which I really, really like. The actual design itself is, as I said, very much like Fallout 4. A lot of the new enemies are very cool. We didn't actually encounter too many new enemies, but the ones we did encounter were pretty cool. For those of you who are worried about the lack of raiders and stuff like that in order to fight people, the Scorch do make up for an awful lot of the gun battles which you would normally be missing by not having raiders. They actually do have decent amount of gun combat in there, and also there's typically quite a lot of them. It's as you'd expect, you know, they are like feral ghouls like guns, and it definitely worked out well. It definitely felt like the raiders who would just shoot on sight, but they would also kind of swarm you as well, because there would be a lot of them. And some of the really cool things about the combat as well is obviously the new VATs. I didn't expect to like the new VATs as much as I did, but you know what? I really liked it. It felt very quick, it felt very intuitive, and it generally felt like it was helping me in combat. Originally I thought, come on, the reason I like VATs is because it goes in slow motion and I see the body parts explode everywhere, and I get to take the time to analyze the situation. You know what? It's a different kind of VATs, but it feels really, really good. It feels like I am taking the action to activate something which I can do to get an edge over my opponent. And not only that, but I have to maintain my VATs. If I want to, say, go into an area and use VATs, I have to make sure I don't sprint, because that actually takes up your action points as well. So using VATs actually does take part of your character's role playing as well. You need to make sure you've got plenty of endurance if you're going to use VATs, or if you've got a disease which drains your endurance, you won't be able to use it. So you've got to maintain your actual character if you want to use these abilities which make combat easier for you. So it also feels like a way to encourage you to maintain your character, not just as kind of a magical button to instantly make things easier to analyze. We're actually going to talk a little bit about some of the diseases and stuff like that. I actually did encounter a mutation. I got the herbivore mutation, which meant I actually got twice the benefit of food and water, but in particular, vegetables gave me twice as much benefit. So I could go and eat meat if I wanted to, but if I ate vegetables, I got twice as much benefit. So the mutations actually are pretty good. That one didn't really appear to have any negative side effects either, so I'll probably keep it. But I know that there are some crazier mutations which do give you crazier abilities and also give you some nasty side effects as well. Luckily, I didn't get any of them. Some other things which I think are really good are the food and water elements. The food and water elements are much more toned down than what they are in, say, the Fallout 4 survival mode. When you have the food and water, it drains your action points, which obviously means if you are hungry or thirsty, you can't sprint as much and you can't use VATs as much. And honestly, that makes sense. If you're dehydrated and hungry, you're not going to be able to run very fast. So I actually think it works out very, very well. And also, it's not too pushy. Although in the 4-hour live stream, I did notice I started to really need food. I couldn't really find food anywhere, not because it wasn't around, but because I had to eat a lot, because I deliberately ignored my starvation level. So I had to eat so much food, and it generally caused a bit of a problem. Water wasn't a problem, but food was. So I definitely had to make sure I would look after food more in the future. The actual perk system works pretty well. I generally liked the fact that you could swap out your perks anytime you wanted. That generally helped out. And not only that, but the ability to very quickly and easily get new benefits and just kind of analyze what your character could use in the future and maybe prioritize that later works very well. It kind of gives you a goal to aim for. You've got a cool perk card, but you don't have the requirements for it. I'll save up for that. It generally worked well, and I liked it a lot also. We should probably also talk about some of the negatives and stuff as well. One thing which generally bothered me is that, honestly, when it is nighttime, it's not as fun. When it is dark, it is very hard to see at times, and it is nighttime for too long, too often. I do believe it is actually daytime slightly longer than it is nighttime, but I do feel as if the actual dark hours of the day should be shorter. Running around at night was not fun. It didn't make it more challenging, it made it more frustrating because I couldn't see enemies, but they could see me. So that was just generally a bit frustrating. I would like to see more daylight hours, or at least maybe make night a bit brighter. Some other things which generally were a bit strange were that when we wanted to do one of the main events, you know, one of the daily events, I'm not gonna lie, it didn't do a very good job at explaining what I actually had to do. Basically, we had to go to the Poseidon energy plant and we had to repair the place. We had to patch leaks in the coolant tower, we had to do basic repairs in the main building and also do some repairs around a reactor or something like that. Well, I honestly didn't know how to do general repairs around the main building, and I also didn't know how to repair the reactor. And not only that, but it didn't really give you any radiation suits or anything, and when you went near the reactor, it would basically kill you instantly, and there were no real radiation suits around, so that caused a genuine problem. One person in the squad eventually found one, but by that point the event had finished, so that was a huge shame that we weren't able to finish that. It just didn't do a very good job of explaining what I actually had to do for that event, or the consequences of what would happen if I tried to do one of the objectives incorrectly. Similar to the event is that we actually found a settlement which we wanted to claim. We actually did go ahead and do it. We claimed it and made it our own because it was actually a food factory, and we thought once we actually noticed it was a food factory, let's actually turn this on. Let's go to the effort to get this place working. That way we are able to get lots of food printing. As I said, food was a problem. But because we didn't do the daily event at the Poseidon Energy Plant, it meant the settlement or the entire region of West Virginia did not have enough power to function. So you could argue that gives you a reason to do the daily event, but since it was a bit hard to do the daily event, or it didn't do a very good job explaining it, we just basically took that settlement and spent the caps to get the settlement running for no reason. Something else which caused a big issue for me was that certain items that you can interact with can only be interacted with by one individual at a time. For example, workbenches like crafting workbenches, weapon workbenches, cooking stations. You have to wait your turn. If someone else is using that, you can't use it. And it basically means there is a queue to use certain items if there are lots of players around. One big problem we found was that we found a robot vendor, and I really wanted to buy some stuff from the robot vendor, but because another player was using the vendor, I could not use that vendor. What if the person talking to the vendor had gone to the toilet or something, or gone AFK for a bit? I would just be sitting there waiting for my turn, and there would be no way for me to use that vendor. Honestly, that has to change. It generally spoiled some very cool stuff because I was reminded that I was playing an online game and somebody else was obstructing my fun. I did notice though, with the graphics, there were some places where there were texture pop-ins and also some actual object pop-ins as well. And not only that, but in some places there were big FPS drops. I know it's a beta, and I know their main job is to optimize it and fix problems now before the main event. But right now, I think optimization is the main thing I noticed. After my first 4 hours, the biggest problem is optimization. But I'm sure they have top men working on it. But besides that though, guys, I think the actual game is very good. When we actually did do the stream block, it was pretty much entirely in a squad. As soon as I stepped out of the vault, there were people waiting for me, and they immediately joined my squad. I almost didn't have a choice in it, if I'm completely honest. But there are people who were following on the Patreon and also on the YouTube membership program who instantly joined me. So I do think next time I would like to maybe do some solo exploring, see what the solo play is like. But I can say the actual squad play, lots of shooting, lots of fun, lots of exploring. It is generally very, very good. Some other things I would also like to try is the camp building. I didn't really get to try the camp building. As I said, we did a little bit of settlement building, but that was very, very minimal. I would definitely like to try to build an actual camp and see how that actually functions properly. And also, I would just like to explore some of the towns, read some of the lore, and do some proper exploring as a solo player also. But besides that, guys, Fallout 76 is genuinely very, very good. Don't worry about there not being human NPCs. There are plenty of times in the Fallout franchise where there haven't been human NPCs. Great example, the Old World Blues DLC. It's pretty much entirely robots. Virgil in Fallout 4, he's a super mutant, not a human NPC. Because remember, it's only human NPCs who are absent. Curie in Fallout 4, robot, not a human. Okay, you can eventually turn into a human, but you know what I'm saying. Don't worry about there not being human NPCs. I did not notice. I did not notice once. So therefore, the biggest gripe I think people have is okay. The actual connectivity of the server and stuff was fine. It never crashed or anything like that. There was never any lag or any netcode errors. They obviously fixed that from the Greenbrier event. So thank you very much for watching this video, guys. This has been my very tired first impressions of Fallout 76 beta. We are going to be doing more streaming, more video content on the beta. In fact, we're going to keep doing it on the Xbox until it's out on PC, then we're going to swap to the PC, and also we're going to be doing the game once it's out fully, of course. So please remember to check out all the cool Patreon people in the description below who help support the channel with their financial donations. You yourself, of course, can also do the same, and I'll see you around. This has been the final render, and you've been the audience. Bye bye for now.